The most anticipated signing is already being questioned? What's happening at Maranello? Pay attention, because today I bring you the complete analysis of the chaos between Hamilton and Ferrari, with details that have not been reported on other channels. It all started after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, crossed the finish line in a modest 7th place. Meanwhile, his teammate, Charles Leclerc, managed to climb onto the podium with a solid 3rd place. The comparison between the two was immediate, but what really sparked the storm were the statements Hamilton himself made minutes after getting out of the car. In front of the microphones, Hamilton bluntly said, "I know the fans aren't happy. I'm sure the team isn't happy either. And I know the coaches aren't. Personally, I'm not satisfied with my results." This statement was not only surprising for its honesty, but also because it revealed a level of frustration unusual for such an experienced driver. It wasn't just a bad result. It was a public confession that something very serious isn't working within Ferrari. These words didn't fall on deaf ears. Immediately, rumors about possible internal tensions began to circulate in Maranello. Speculation centered on whether the team was prepared to deal with the media pressure that comes with having Hamilton on its team. Because Ferrari didn't just hire a driver. It hired a global icon with a massive fan base and a track record of demanding immediate results. The phrase, "the bosses aren't happy," set off alarm bells. Who was he referring to? Frédéric Vasseur, President John Elkann, or the top technical brass who designed the SF25? What seemed like a personal reflection turned into a political statement. And at Ferrari, Hamilton's every word is scrutinized. The Italian media were quick to interpret these statements as a direct warning to the team's structure. For the first time since his arrival, Hamilton publicly showed that he was not only uncomfortable with the car, but also with the way the team was managing his adaptation. In just a few weeks, the narrative shifted from enthusiasm over the signing of the century to a potential crisis of confidence. This media bombshell completely reshaped the landscape. And from that moment on, the focus was no longer just on the on-track results, but on how Ferrari would react internally to calm the situation. Because when a figure like Hamilton sends out that kind of message, it's not by chance. It's a strategy. And that, within Ferrari, felt like an earthquake. Behind Lewis Hamilton's poor performance at the start of the season, there is a structural problem much deeper than simple driving errors. The SF25, the car Ferrari will compete with in 2025, is proving to be one of the biggest technical challenges Hamilton has faced in his entire career. And it's not for lack of talent or experience. It's a matter of incompatibility between the driving style he's perfected for over a decade and the mechanical and dynamic demands of this car. Hamilton developed an aggressive but extremely effective way of driving at Mercedes, late braking, rapid rotation of the car, and a corner entry that takes full advantage of forward pitch to load the front axle. This style allowed him to dominate the hybrid era and build one of the most successful track records in the history of motorsport. But with Ferrari, all that falls apart. The SF25 requires smoother handling, more progressive corner transitions, and much more delicate tire wear control. The big sticking point is the braking system. While Mercedes used Carbone industry brakes, Ferrari works with Brembo components. The difference isn't just a matter of brand, but of philosophy. Brembos have a more aggressive initial bite but a less linear progression. This requires a complete recalibration of the left foot sensitivity, something extremely difficult when you've been working for so many years with another technology. Hamilton isn't feeling the car as an extension of his body, and in Formula One, that disconnect is lethal. The telemetry data, far from offering answers, is raising more questions. In theory, the difference between what Leclerc does and what Hamilton does isn't that great. But in practice, that minimal difference translates into several tenths per lap. Mainly in medium and high-speed corners, where the car requires a perfect balance between downforce, weight transfer, and steering feel. Leclerc has mastered it, Hamilton hasn't yet. The most worrying thing for the Briton is that his efforts to adapt aren't bearing visible fruit. His frustration is palpable. He already said it after Saudi Arabia, in an interview that lasted just 32 seconds. "There wasn't a single second where I felt comfortable." That phrase sums up the chasm that exists between him and the SF25. And there's one key detail that can't be ignored. While other drivers adapt their style to the car, Hamilton has historically been the one who adapts the car to his style. That dynamic, for now, isn't occurring at Ferrari. The car doesn't let itself be tamed. It doesn't respond to commands. And that, for someone who bases his performance on confidence and pinpoint precision, is a very serious problem. What seemed like a matter of time is turning into a technical nightmare. And if Ferrari doesn't find a solution that allows Hamilton to regain his feeling, this experiment could end up being a monumental disappointment. Not for lack of talent, but due to a DNA incompatibility between driver and machine. Ferrari's reaction to Hamilton's statements was as swift as it was calculated. Team principal Frédéric Vasseur immediately addressed the media to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. His message was clear: "I will be 2000% behind Lewis." A forceful, almost desperate statement that reveals both the support and the urgency with which the team is trying to contain the media and emotional impact of the bombshell dropped by its new star driver. Publicly, Ferrari continues to bet everything on Hamilton. Vasseur insists there is no reason to panic, and that these difficulties are normal in an adaptation process. But that narrative, no matter how hard it tries to sustain it, fails to hide the fact that internal pressure is overwhelming. Signing Hamilton wasn't just a sporting decision. It was a political statement. A message to the world that Ferrari was back for everything. That the Scuderia wanted to return to center stage. And so, admitting that something isn't working even quietly is simply not in the Maranello manual. There's a clear intention to prevent the media from turning the situation into a crisis. Vasseur tries to downplay the situation, saying that it's positive to see Hamilton frustrated because it means he's still hungry for victory. He presents it as a virtue, as a sign of commitment. But deep down, that phrase is also a shield. An attempt to put a positive spin on what, in other contexts, would be considered a sign of internal rupture. Behind the official narrative, however, there are signs that Ferrari is adjusting its strategy. Simulator sessions have been intensified, priorities within the technical department have been reorganized, and Hamilton has been given greater influence in the feedback and car development processes. These kinds of moves are not accidental. They reflect the urgent need to stabilize the relationship between driver and team. Vasseur, in his attempt to protect Hamilton, is also risking his own reputation, because he was the one who pushed for the signing. It was his personal gamble. And if this project fails, not only Hamilton's image will be called into question, but also that of the person who brought him in. Therefore, the public defense is not just loyalty. It's self-protection. It's internal politics. It's Ferrari in its purest form. The team's management knows they can't afford a disastrous season, much less an implosion with Hamilton. Comparisons with Sebastian Vettel are inevitable. Another world champion who arrived at Ferrari with promises of glory and ended up leaving through the back door after a period plagued by frustration. The message is clear: Ferrari needs this to work. They can't allow Hamilton, who represents both on and off the track, to become a symbol of another failed cycle. Therefore, although the official discourse is one of calm and unconditional support, drastic decisions are being made behind closed doors. And each of them points in one direction: avoiding collapse. The critical situation Lewis Hamilton is going through at Ferrari is not only being addressed with words. It's also being addressed with technical and strategic decisions that are changing the team's internal dynamics. Unlike other teams where the most experienced driver in-house leads development, Ferrari has made a radical change by deciding to let Hamilton take the lead in the evolution of the SF25. This move is much more than a symbolic gesture. It's a total commitment. Ferrari is handing the development wheel to a driver who, although a newcomer, brings with him 7 world titles and a technical understanding of the car that few in the paddock can match. In practice, this means that Hamilton is not only testing new parts, but also setting the course for the car's immediate future. During the Bahrain Grand Prix, Ferrari introduced its first major package of updates: a floor modification, adjustments to the diffuser geometry, and changes to the cooling system. All with a clear objective: to improve downforce in slow corners, where the SF25 was losing critical time. However, these improvements brought with them an unwanted side effect. The dreaded aerodynamic rebound, or bouncing, returned in fast corners, a specter that Formula One thought it had left behind since the implementation of ground effect in 2022. The key here is that it was Hamilton who first tested this new floor. He was tasked with analyzing its performance, comparing it with the simulator data, and providing direct feedback to the engineers. And that level of responsibility isn't bestowed upon just any driver. It's a clear sign that, despite the poor results, Ferrari continues to see Hamilton as its best technical option to move this project forward. Furthermore, the team has strengthened its simulation infrastructure, updating the SF25's digital model to improve the correlation between virtual data and the car's real-life performance. This improvement is significant. With the current limitations imposed by the regulations on track testing, the simulator has become the primary development tool. And now, with a more fine-tuned model, Hamilton will be able to experiment with changes, test new configurations, and accelerate his adaptation process without having to wait for a Grand Prix. What's striking is that Ferrari hasn't delegated this task to Leclerc, a driver who has known the team, the car, and the methodology for years. That they've chosen to place that level of responsibility on Hamilton's shoulders reveals something fundamental. They know that if they want this project to have a future, they need to build the car around him. Because while Leclerc can squeeze the most out of the current package, it's Hamilton who can take the team to the next technical and competitive level. But to do that, he needs a car that speaks his language. Right now, the SF25's success depends not only on the technical department, but on Ferrari's ability to correctly read Hamilton's feedback and translate it into real solutions. If they succeed, this could be the turning point of the season. If they fail, they risk losing not only performance, but also the confidence of the most important driver they've signed in over a decade. Lewis Hamilton's immediate future in the 2025 Formula One season seems to be surrounded by more questions than answers. And the most alarming thing is that, for the first time in a long time, it's Hamilton himself who publicly acknowledges this. After the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, his statement was direct and brutal. "I have no answers. Right now there is no solution. So this is how it's going to be for the rest of the year. It will be painful." It's not just a complaint. It's a statement. This kind of statement, coming from a driver who has faced all kinds of challenges in his career, cannot be taken lightly. We're talking about a world champion who has dealt with extreme pressure, titles at stake, and controversies on and off the track. But here, what he's expressing is different. It's the voice of someone who is not only losing track time, but is also beginning to lose confidence in the direction of the project. The contrast with the start of the season couldn't be greater. During preseason testing, Hamilton spoke enthusiastically about the car's potential. He said he felt a positive connection, that the car's performance was better than expected. He even went so far as to say it was the most positive feeling I've had in a long time. That initial hope has faded race after race, giving way to a somber tone that worries both fans and Ferrari's own team. The only glimmer of light amidst this gloomy outlook was victory in the sprint race at the Chinese Grand Prix. On that occasion, Hamilton demonstrated that he still has the ability to extract the best from a difficult car in particular conditions. But that victory was more of a flash in the pan than a sign of recovery. In the main races, the pattern repeats itself. Difficulty finding rhythm, disconnection with the car, and growing frustration. And yet, Hamilton hasn't given up. This week, he canceled personal commitments and flew to Maranello to work closely with the engineers. His commitment is absolute. He's willing to do whatever it takes to turn things around. But even with that attitude, the doubts remain. Because the problem isn't just emotional or mental. It's technical. And if the car doesn't perform, there's no willpower to compensate. The big question is how long this situation can last without something breaking. Ferrari needs results, and Hamilton needs an environment where he can compete at the highest level. If that equation isn't resolved soon, it's not unreasonable to imagine a scenario in which expectations end up crushing the project. The season is still long, but the margin for error is dwindling. And what's at stake isn't just Hamilton's present, but the legacy of his last great move in Formula One. Because this adventure with Ferrari wasn't meant to be an experiment. It was conceived to be historic. And if he doesn't change course, it could end up being just that, but for the wrong reasons. Lewis Hamilton's arrival at Ferrari was heralded as a historic event. A move that shook the paddock to its foundations and sparked a wave of excitement rarely seen in modern Formula One. It was the meeting of the sport's living legend and the most iconic team in motorsport. The expectation was clear: championships, victories, and epic narrative. But the reality, just a few races later, is radically different. Instead of dominance, what we've seen is disconnection. Instead of immediate synergy, we've witnessed a constant struggle between Hamilton's driving style and the demands of the SF25. More worryingly, the gap with his teammate Charles Leclerc isn't closing. It's widening. The great challenge for Ferrari isn't just technical, strategic. They need to decide whether they'll redirect the car's development toward Hamilton's strengths or whether they'll continue fine-tuning a car that, while competitive with Leclerc, isn't quite working with their other star driver. Because that dilemma isn't minor. It means choosing a philosophy, coming down in a direction, and assuming the consequences that entails. For Hamilton, this period is no longer just a sporting transition. It's a test of character, of patience, of adaptation, and also of emotional resilience. Because he didn't come to Ferrari to retire. He came to win. But if the car doesn't evolve to where he needs it to, his legacy could end on a note of frustration rather than glory. Time is the scarcest resource in Formula One. Every race that goes by without solid results erodes confidence, both inside and outside the team. And while there's still room to react, the feeling in the air is that this story, if not put back on track soon, could become another case of what could have been and wasn't. The question that remains is as direct as it is unsettling. Are we witnessing the beginning of a legendary era or the start of a monumental disappointment? Only the rest of the season will tell.